No, thank you very much. It's before lunchtime. I think it's triple banikayon. Yeah, so I'm gonna be very quick. So just to introduce myself. Oh, by the way, people are talking about brands, right? So I just wanna test something. 469. What does it mean to you guys? Yeah, I'm so impressed. So you guys know, okay? So we're a host today, and I always say I never want to participate because it's like I'm taking advantage of that. But nevertheless, that's where we are, guys. I'm gonna sit down, because I haven't slept. I'll be honest with you. So yeah, I'm very impressed with what you guys just acknowledged now because it talks about this brand equity thing that we're all striving for, and 469 as a business that is based in Motherwell. Township is our space. So I'm asked to talk about a very difficult task of growing a business, scaling up a business, right? And they use a word called bootstrap. So do you guys understand what that means? Because it should be a very common phenomenon among small businesses, especially those who are coming from the township space. So do you guys understand what that concept means, right? Bootstrap. Ayindim that uzawuthetha kaloku, so I need you guys to engage. Okay. So I think before obviously I talk about what that could mean. I think it's a very familiar phenomena among small businesses, particularly those who are coming from the township, right? Because it means starting a business with basically nothing, right? And the reason why I thought to me it was quite interesting, and I'm not going to give you guys an academic perspective, right? I can do that, but I want to give you guys practical things because I think I'm a scholar of that. So I've come from that environment, and I want to speak about something that you guys can relate to because most of you guys have started businesses basically with nothing. So bootstrapping is a concept that you're quite familiar. And how do we then grow from that situation? So there are a number of disciplines that we can talk about from an academic point of view, but I want to talk about things that relate to me as an entrepreneur. Today, as much as I've got obviously the business interest in the township, I also run a manufacturing company. I'm also in the recycling space. So I've got a number of things that I'm busy with. And that all started from a car wash business, basically. Right, so it talks about the bootstrapping, the methodologies, and what are the things that are important in that space. Because I can assure you, if you guys were not in that space, you wouldn't be here. So you're quite familiar with that. So I think for me, there's a number of disciplines. And I think the first one that I want to talk about is the financial management side of things, right? And this is one aspect that is critical for business sustainability and growth, because if you don't get it right, it doesn't matter if you've got a superb product that you are selling or services, but if you cannot manage your cash flow, if you cannot manage your finances, it becomes a problem. If mawufika pe 469, ufika uswipe ngela khadi lakho le business, it's going to be a problem. So financial management for me is key. And when we talk about the financial management as a whole, I'm not just talking about the income, right, the revenue generation. I'm also talking about when you do make money in business, what do you do with that money? You know, do you reinvest that money back to the business, or do you take it as a profit, it's your dividend, and you must spend it? Buy something. We call it, those people who are too edgy to spend the money. That's what I'm talking about. So there's a number of things that we must do in that space. So how do you control your costs, all right? Because sometimes when you don't have the money, as I told you, that the principle itself is about starting a business with little resources. And one of those key resources is cash flow. You do not have the money. So what are the things that you must do to be agile still within that environment? So cash management is very important, which is cash flow. We call it cash flow, is the lifeblood of the business itself. So Just to give you a typical example, when I started, what I did, right? Because the other aspect of that equation speaks about the issue of investment. You go to the bank, you're not going to get money, right? We know that. Or you can ask your uncle to borrow you money, and he will come next month, he wants his money back. So one of the things that that was strategic in my journey was that I've looked at, for instance, how do you acquire cheap capital, right, to start the business? And one of those things was to look at a number of investment schemes that were there, and part of those were grant funding, competitions, So we've entered things like your SAP Kickstart, and we won. Our first investment actually came from SAP Kickstart, and we got 130,000 rands from that. So that was free money, highly valuable money, because I didn't have to pay an installment the next month. So all I had to do was to make sure I use it for what I intended it to be used for, to buy equipment and obviously to run the business. So I'm saying that you must look at all of those things that relate to a disciplined financial management model. And you can obviously add your own in terms of that. So that's one discipline. So to get to the next one, which I'm very happy about, and I enjoy that one, and I like the fact that you guys can relate to the brand, the issue of market and market access. At the end of the day, if you could have a beautiful business, market is what determines the value of business. And I think one of the things that you guys were talking about here is the issue of brand equity, right? Brand equity, in my perspective, is regulated by market. What is the perception of that brand in the market? So it's very important to identify what your brand stands for in terms of marketing or market access. It's also very important that as an entrepreneur, how do you represent that brand or product or service, whatever it is that you want to take to the market? What are the things that you view as instruments that is going to take your product to the next level? So the issue of marketing, sorry guys, I'm just digressing a bit here, because as I said, I didn't sleep. So I'm saying that, obviously marketing itself costs money, right? Marketing itself costs money. And one of the things that I've used, to me, digital marketing instruments have been my strength, social media, Facebook, because those are all cheap marketing instruments that you can use. Because obviously, if I were to go to a marketing agency and say to them, give me a marketing plan, those things, they cost money. So, right, so you guys understand. So if you want to grow your market, I'm saying that you must look at cost-effective marketing schemes that you can obviously utilize to grow your business and make sure that your product is accessible and grow your brand equity. So that's one of those aspects that you can look at. And so there's a lot I want to say there, but the next element in my list is also obviously based on the product. So now we're talking about so you've got good marketing, you've got good financial support system. Now, what are you selling? What's your product differentiation? I always say, and I will make an example, as I said, I'm just a typical entrepreneur from the township as well, that when I entered for these competitions, we took a simple business model called the car wash, right? Nothing fancy. It's been done 1 million times, and we competed at a provincial level. And we actually won that competition, and we won it twice, which was run by different institutions. And one of the things that I was saying is that, how do we differentiate our service as compared to any other traditional car wash in the township or in the urban areas? And we were very articulative of what are those key, so we were very articulative of what are those key differentiating activities within the business in terms of the product itself and our offering. So, for instance, we said that we had a very good brand identity in the market that had the cross-pollination range, so people can relate to it. And the fact that, we were not just washing cars, we were creating an experience where people come to our car wash, they meet other people, so it's a very friendly, convenient offering. So it's not just about washing cars, because we believe that if you wash a car, anybody here is capable of washing a car. But what they're not going to get is the experience, is the interaction, is the quality, and most importantly, is how they relate to the brand. So that to me was a standout competitive advantage in terms of brand differentiation. So yasinceda ke loo nto. We won 2 competition, SAB, Kickstart. In actual fact, we won 3, CEDA, and there was a National Gazelle program that we also won as a top 40 in the country, right? And then just to speak about the other discipline, it's got to do with, I call it administrative issues, right? And the reason why I say is things that as entrepreneurs we don't like. Administrative issues, a business plan, right? I remember what we did and what was compelling in our quest to win this competition was the fact that when we started the business, we actually drew up a business plan. It's not something that when we start a small business we want to do, right? It's a very tedious exercise. So entrepreneurs don't enjoy that. But I always say that a business plan it's a work in progress document. It's a live document. It means that it doesn't have to be perfect. But the key competitive advantage of having a business plan is that it gives you the latitude of your business. You can see a dashboard, right? You can put metrics that you can measure, monitor, and evaluate. And those are the things that drive your business growth at the end of the day. So when someone talks about the business plan, I'm not talking about the dossier. I'm just talking about a simple document, 5-page, that defines your growth path, that defines your key competitive advantages, what differentiates you from your competitors as well. So I know, as I said, it's not something that people want to do. And I know that there's a couple of guys that are sitting here running businesses. They don't have a business plan, right? Just a simple business plan. And other issues that I want to talk about, as I said, is administrative issues. It's things that we don't like, compliance issues. And I know that, for instance, because we've got an ecosystem that talks about enterprise development and entrepreneurship, we often encounter some of these problems, and the issue of compliance has been identified as one. Now, what it does, it means that you guys cannot participate in some of these government initiatives in terms of grants or banks for funding, because people are not compliant. They do not have the basic elements of the business. So the issue of compliance is also one of those things that we must look at. And one of the things that I've learned in my factory environment, is what we call standard operating procedures, SOPs. Does anybody understand what an SOP is? It doesn't matter how small your business is. If you do not have a predetermined, model of how things are done from 8 o'clock when you open your business and 10 o'clock when you close, the chances are you are not going to derive consistency out of that situation. So a standard operating procedure or an SOP, it details what needs to be done on a day-to-day basis. And what that helps with, it standardizes your processes. And it means that your outcomes can be predetermined. And I always make an example about the likes of KFCs that are owned by different people in different regions. What makes them different is because the standard operating procedure they have, it is so consistent that even if you buy from one eKasi or in Bloemfontein or whatever, the chances are the meat is going to taste the same, right? There will be minor differences there and there. So for me, that is one of those housekeeping issues that we need to look at. As I said, I come from a factory environment, and this is a discipline that is quite predominant. You cannot produce any product manufacturing-wise if you do not have quality management systems. And when we talk about quality management system, I'm not saying that you must develop, a 30-page document. I'm saying 2 minutes. I got young partner. So anyway, I'm not saying create a 30-page document. But I'm saying that if I want to create a good experience for my customers, these are the things that I need to comply with. You measure. There must be a metric that you measure. And once you measure that metric, you must evaluate, and there must be continuous improvement when it comes to that. Why unqawula le MC? So let me just go to the last part. Maybe I will use it as a closing remark. And I heard that the previous speaker also was talking about continuous improvement or continuous learning. Once again, these are elements that are quite predominant in the manufacturing space. But I think as an entrepreneur, one of my strong points is the fact that, every day you keep learning, right? Township economy has been my big introduction into the business space. But what I've also done in the past, even currently, was that I have used the Internet of Things to learn a lot of things. Today I know about recycling of plastic that I never sat, in a class for. Today I know about recycling, in terms of electronic waste, things that I sat on the Internet for a couple of months, and I've developed, and I've got businesses in that space. So all I'm saying is that if you're an entrepreneur that requires to remain agile, you want to grow your business with little that you've got, the issue of knowledge becomes a very powerful tool that you can use to leverage in terms of your growth. And again, one point of departure, MC, is that, in terms of the market that I was talking about, there's one aspect that I want to link in there. For instance, these initiatives that we do, thank you, Kobulelani, and everybody that has collaborated here, is that this is where obviously you leverage on access to that knowledge, but also on access to the market, because someone sitting here could be a potential buyer, a potential partner. So I encourage that when we host this type of events, people utilize the platforms, obviously, to grow their business, because it's all about, what did it cost you to come here, guys? Not much. So I'm just saying we utilize cost-effective measures to obviously amplify our output. MC ufuna undiqhawula wena, so ngizakuyeka ke ndikunike lo wonga. As I said, I don't want to be long because you guys have put me closer to the eating time, and ndiyayazi ke ne-concentration levels ziyahla ke ngoku because ukutya kuyaphekwa pha. So I will leave it at that.